And the United nightmare continues. There's more turbulence coming United's way, with the airline again making headlines this week for booting a couple off a flight. The Utah couple were en route to their wedding in Costa Rica. After boarding the plane, they discovered a man snoozing on their seats. Instead of waking him up, they decided to just park themselves on some empty seats nearby. A flight attendant came by asking if they were in the right seats, since they were sitting in Economy Plus, which was more expensive. The couple asked for an upgrade, but were denied and told to move back. Despite complying with the order, they claim a marshal later came and took them off the plane anyway. They were rebooked on Sunday morning, the day of their wedding. But United isn't sorry about what happened, and they claim that's not how things went down. According to the airline, the couple didn't pay for the upgraded seats, but repeatedly tried to sit there, and wouldn't follow instructions to move back to their assigned row. The couple's motives for moving seats does seem shady, and it's possible they were capitalizing on United's recent mishaps, trying to score better seats for free. But despite not being entirely at fault for this one, it's really not in United's best interest to keep booting people off their planes, especially for something as little as a seat upgrade. But I guess old habits die hard. Really, we should just be thankful they didn't assault anyone this time. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. Here's a refresher of United Airlines' recent PR nightmares, and a couple others in case you've forgotten. United Airlines drags passenger off flight. United Airlines is facing yet another PR disaster. That's after this footage of a bloodied passenger being forcibly removed from a flight went viral. The man was dragged from his seat as the plane sat on the tarmac in Chicago on Sunday, bound for Louisville, Kentucky. It all kicked off when United needed to get 4 staff members to Louisville, but then realized the flight was already full and no seats were available. Passengers who volunteered to give up their seats and take a later flight were offered $400 in compensation and a free hotel stay. But even when that offer was doubled to $800, there were still no takers. That's when United decided to choose the volunteers themselves, and 4 passengers were randomly bumped from the plane. One couple left the airplane without incident, but the man in the video refused. He said he was a doctor and needed to get back to Louisville to see his patients. United staff told the man that security would be called if he didn't get off the plane. Again, he refused, and that's when things got physical.
No, this is wrong. Oh my God, look at what you did to him. Oh my.
While this incident was undoubtedly brutal, United is within its legal rights to overbook flights and to remove passengers from their planes. They just have to pay compensation of up to $1,350, depending on the length of the delay. 10 minutes later, the passenger ran back on the plane looking confused. Eventually, all the passengers were made to deboard and go back to the gate while the plane was cleaned up. The plane eventually arrived in Louisville 2 hours late. In a statement, United Airlines apologized for what they described as an overbooking situation, but didn't say sorry to the passenger who was dragged from his seat. In an email to staff on Monday, United CEO Oscar Munoz said the man was disruptive and belligerent. The Chicago Department of Aviation says the security officer who dragged the passenger out of his seat has been put on leave, pending an investigation.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the United crew, please direct your attention to the monitors as we review the emergency procedures. There are 8 emergency holding cells on this aircraft. In some cases, the nearest holding cell may be behind you. Should the cabin experience a sudden overbooking, stay calm. Handcuffs will drop from above your seat. Place the handcuffs on your hands like this. If you are traveling with small children, make sure your cuffs are on first before cuffing your children. In the likely event we call the cops to drag you off because of our own incompetence, please assume the position. A taser is located in a pouch under your seat. To use the taser, aim it at the unruly passenger and pull the trigger. Electricity will do the rest. We remind you that this is a no-holds-barred flight. Refusing to be reaccommodated, disagreeing, or expecting any actual service is prohibited by law. If you have any questions, keep them to yourselves. And thank you for flying the friendly skies.
Revelations about United Airlines passengers' past are totally irrelevant. The forcible removal of a passenger from a United Airlines flight has been a PR disaster for the world's third biggest carrier. But it's the colorful past of passenger Dr. David Dow that's come under a predictable media spotlight from sleazy tabloid newspapers. As highlighted by the likes of the Daily Mail and the New York Post, a Dr. David Dow was convicted in Kentucky in 2004 for prescribing drugs to patients in exchange for sex. And they just couldn't resist harping on the juicy details, like how the married doctor was also allegedly batting for the other side. Some commenters online have questioned if it was necessary for the media to drag up the doctor's past, and we would have to agree with them. Others debated whether the doctor with a criminal history and the doctor manhandled off the plane were even the same guy. Now, here at TomoNews, we don't have the budget or time for that kind of investigative journalism, but we'd guess, based on the evidence we've seen, that the two men are one and the same. Some people are now accusing United Airlines of running a smear campaign against the doctor. We're not so sure they are. For big stories like this, the media always does some digging into the background of the central characters, regardless of whether what they uncover is relevant to the issue at hand or not. For example, it's also been revealed that Dr. Dow trained as a chef and made serious bank as a poker player, which seem like pretty positive qualities to us, rather than part of a smear campaign. In the end, none of this really matters and is a distraction from the real issue. Everyone has a past, and we seriously doubt whether the cops who removed Dr. Dow from the plane knew anything about his. The only thing that matters is whether the force used to remove the passenger was justified. And that looks like it's going to be a matter for the lawyers. In the words of the doctor himself, the guy just wanted to go home.
To go home. I have to go home. I have to go home.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. Things are going from bad to worse for United Airlines. A former United Airlines customer is claiming staff once threatened to handcuff him if he didn't give up his seat to make way for a higher priority traveler. High-flying businessman Jeff Ferns came forward with his story after the forcible removal of a passenger from a United plane on Sunday. Ferns paid $1,000 for a first-class ticket from Hawaii to LA last week, but was then told to get off the plane. The finance executive said United staff told him somebody more important had showed up at the last minute, and if he didn't budge, they'd remove him by force. Ferns was eventually downgraded to economy and placed between a married couple who refused to sit next to each other and argued for the entire 6-hour flight. Back at home, Ferns asked United for a full refund and a $25,000 donation to the charity of his choice. As the LA Times puts it, that's how rich guys do it. United turned down both requests and instead offered Ferns the difference between the first-class ticket and an economy ticket. The airline then got in touch a week later to offer a $500 credit for a future trip, but Ferns said he would never fly United again. This latest PR blow to the airline comes in the wake of the forcible removal of passenger Dr. David Dow from a Chicago to Louisville flight on Sunday. On Wednesday, United offered a full refund to everyone on that flight and said it would no longer get the cops to remove passengers from planes that were too full. What's more, Chicago's Department of Aviation said 2 more officers involved in the removal of Dow had now been placed on leave pending an investigation. 3 officers in total have now been placed on leave. Meanwhile, attorneys for Dow filed an emergency request with an Illinois state court to force United to preserve video and other evidence related to the removal of their client from the plane, which in all likelihood means the lawyers are preparing a huge-ass lawsuit for damages against United Airlines.
Flight attendant allegedly refuses to give Muslim chaplain a dangerous soda can. A slew of Facebookers and tweeters say they're boycotting United Airlines after a flight attendant allegedly refused to give a Muslim chaplain a can of soda because she might use it as a weapon. 31-year-old Tahira Ahmad, who is the director of interfaith engagement at Northwestern University, shared her experience on Facebook Friday night. She says she was flying from Chicago to Washington for a religious peace conference. She asked the flight attendant for an unopened can of Diet Coke for hygienic reasons. The woman said no and explained to Tahira that unopened soda cans could be used as weapons. But then the flight attendant proceeded to hand the man next to Tahira an unopened beer can. When Tahira protested, the flight attendant quickly opened the man's beer can and reiterated the so-called policy. Tahira says she expected someone on the flight to speak up on her behalf, but the only response was from a man who got up and told her, "You Muslim, you need to shut the f*** up." Tahira says she was in tears after the incident. On Saturday evening, United Airlines released a statement saying the whole thing was a misunderstanding and that the flight attendant had tried to accommodate Tahira. But the chaplain says the statement disappointed her. What do you think? Was the flight attendant discriminating against her? Leave your thoughts in the comments.